and welcome to Pale Blue Pod, the astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but still want to be its friend. I'm your host. I'm Dr. Moiya McTier, an astrophysicist, a folklorist, and a good friend to the universe. And I am recording today from my office here at Pale Blue Podiversity. I'm expecting a guest all the way from Ohio who I think is probably also a friend to the universe. We'll see. Corey Rindler is half of the Bathtub Season podcast, and he's come to the Podiversity to discuss the TV show Firefly, which I had never seen before. It's a great time. I think his train has already arrived, so he should be here any minute now. Corey, come on in. How you doing?
Hello. It was hard to find the office.
I know. We're not great with signage here at the Podiversity because we want our students to, go based on instinct. Go where their curiosity takes them.
Yeah, I just followed my conscience and my intuition, and I arrived in this office.
Excellent. It's so good to have you here. Is there anything else you would want people to know about you before we get started?
No, I think you summed it up pretty good. I have a podcast with a buddy that we record from bathtubs, so this is weird being clothed while recording. Getting used to that. And I don't have anything formal in space. My background's in audio engineering, but I didn't end up finding any work in that.
I hear it's tricky.
Yeah, but my co-host does. That's what he does full time.
Nice. Well, you made it work together with the podcast.
Yep. We're doing our best. It's a terrible place to record from, the bathroom. Audio quality is not good.
I know. All those hard surfaces. I actually thought about having my construction crew put in a couple of bathtubs in my office for this, but I was like, but the audio quality, terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing about the water damage. I didn't care about that. It's fine. Okay, well, I have some questions to get to know you a little bit better, delve into the core of who Corey is, the Corey of who you are. First question, I think, is the biggest and maybe scariest. When you think about how much universe there is out there, how does it make you feel?
Excited and awestruck, like awesome in the biblical term, because it's so cool that there's so much to learn, but at the same time, like, that's just incredible and hard to wrap your brain around it.
Yeah. Is this awesomeness something that you feel drawn to? Like, do you want to get closer to it?
Oh yeah, I love it. I love all things space and learning about it. Like, growing up watching History Channel and Discovery Channel specials about space is great.
Awesome. And here you are on a space podcast.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? You made it happen. You reached out and you made it come true.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, next question. Do you feel like your zodiac sign fits your personality?
100%. I am an Aquarius, and I know everyone says we're like the aliens of the zodiac because no one can understand us. Our heads are up in the cloud, and we'll just say like the weirdest stuff. And I think that sums me up pretty good. I'm always off thinking some new hyperfixation or learning about something new, and it's difficult talking to people that want to talk about their day, and it's like, I want to talk about the root of consciousness right now. That's what I'm thinking about.
We must halt everything for a conversation on panpsychism. Like, you guys don't even know. No, it's good. Never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. What is your favorite unit of measurement?
It's funny because I'd actually become really obsessed with one before I even started listening to your podcast. And so I was super excited to hear that was one of the guest questions. And it's the Planck measurements, but specifically Planck time, because I love the idea that reality has a frame rate.
Yes. So can you say more about that? Yeah. What does the Planck time mean to you?
Yeah, so it's like supposedly the smallest unit of measurement of time that is measurable. So you can't measure anything smaller than that in like milliseconds, picoseconds, however deep you go. That's the smallest one. And I think it's weird to think about because what's happening in between then? Like that is like a frame rate, like for a TV. Like, are we just blipping out of in and out every billion times a second? It makes my brain hurt.
Yes. I had never thought about it that way, but you're right. It's like, if we can't quantify this discretion, like this discreteness between the moments, what's happening? Oh, that's so cool. Okay. Well, I'm going to think about that later. Thanks, Corey.
Yep, you're welcome. See, this is the stuff I'm thinking about when somebody wants to talk to me about what they want to get for lunch. And then my Aquarius brain is like, what's weird? The universe has a frame rate.
And then I would just stop being hungry and we'd have to talk about that for a long time. Okay. So get more Aquarius friends is what I'm learning from this. I'm curious what event in space you would most like to witness if you could safely do so from our Pale Blue Pod time and space transport machine.
I want to see what's past the edge with the universe expanding, and I've never been able to make that make sense in my brain that universe has a hard line. That's what I want to see. I want to see the boundary of the universe.
Or the boundary or beyond it.
Both. Either.
Yeah. Porque no los dos. Go with both. You would be swarmed by journalists when you came back. Space journalists would be like, oh my God, what is on the other end of the unobservable universe? Yeah. I get this question often, what is the universe expanding into? And it kills me as a science communicator because I don't have a satisfying answer to it. No one does. So we'll send you in the transport machine and you can come back and give me a satisfying answer.
The only way I can wrap my head around it is maybe it's space is expanding, but light hasn't reached it yet. So you could be there, but just not see anything.
Well, no, because it has light there. Oh. It has its own light that was carried away with all of the objects that got carried away by the expansion of the universe. It's just that the light that's there is too far away to reach us.
That's what I want to see.
You want to be in the great universal room where it's all happening.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, this is a brand new question, Corey.
Okay.
I wanted to keep you on your toes. What is one law of physics that you would change if you could?
I got to remember the laws of physics.
Right. And I know that most people don't know, and I can't even list all the laws of physics, but just what's a natural law that you encounter in your life that you would change if you could?
I think for the reasons we've described, it'd be being able to go faster than the speed of light, because I just want to see everything that's out there. I want to learn everything about what's around us. And it seems like such a difficult problem for learning more, because...
Yeah, take that, Einstein.
Yeah.
But just for you, because actually for people doing science, it is very good that light only travels at a finite speed. This is one of the reasons astronomers can look so far back in time when we look more distantly. But for you, Corey, yes, let's let you move and perceive faster than the speed of light. And then we can get all the sets of answers to our questions.
Yes. And I think, too, growing up watching Star Trek and, going the warp drive and everything. And I love that in the Star Trek canon, they also have their own boundary they can't hit, for so many times the speed of light is their limit. And they never explain why. But I always thought that was a fun twist.
Yeah, it is nice that it doesn't go on forever.
Infinite.
That, yes. It's interesting that you bring up, warp drives and this faster than light travel, because we're about to talk about Firefly, and that is not something that comes up, which is interesting to me. But we do have one final question.
Okay.
The most important question before we move on. Imagine you are an astronaut strapped into the pilot command in a rocket. You're about to blast off. What song are you playing during launch?
I knew this question was coming, and I tried to think of a fun answer, but the first gut reaction was Everything in Its Right Place by Radiohead, just because I think that vibe would be just right. Not quite melancholy, but just this is a wild thing I'm doing, and just take it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Radiohead is a good vibe for a rocket launch. It's it's gritty. A rocket launch is a gritty moment, I think.
Little out there.
Okay, good. I like that. I will be adding that to the playlist.
Oh, there's a playlist of all the songs people have picked? I will be looking that up.
I have it on Spotify. I guess I don't share it out enough, but I will do that.
I will look that up. That's super cool.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay, so the Firefly of it all. I asked you if you knew of any sci-fi shows that only had one season, and your first response was Firefly. And I was like, yes, obviously. I had never seen it, although I am certainly no newcomer to Joss Whedon's intellectual properties, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we could just leave him out of it. What's been your past experience with Firefly?
Back in college, just, was the heavy days of Tumblr and all the different Tumblr fandoms. And I remember coming across the whole Firefly thing as well as everything else that was happening in those days. And I was like, I need to watch this because I love Doctor Who. Because of course you had to back then. I still love Doctor Who, but it was much bigger. But I was like, okay, I'll watch it. It's only one season, and it was great. I was like, there's no way like a show gets canceled after one season. Like, how good can it be? And I was like, you know what? This is pretty good.
Because that also wasn't as common back then. Like now it's almost expected for shows to be canceled after one season, but it was not as much the norm.
Yeah.
This show came out in 2002.
Did it? Yes, it did.
Yeah, it was all released in the fall of 2002.
Yeah, and I have seen the movie that followed up to Serenity, but I didn't get to watch that before we recorded this, so it has been quite a while since I watched Serenity. I tried putting it on last night when I was feeding the baby, and it was like 2 a.m. I was like, I'm not even paying attention at this point. I'm so tired. But
no, that's just background noise. That's actually just extra ambient light for you at that point. No, I have seen Serenity, but not for a very long time, and after watching Firefly, I realized that I do need to make another episode of Pale Blue about Serenity in like a movie review episode. But I wanted to tackle just the TV show at first. Do you know anything about its like reception or like the popularity of it?
I do know a little bit just because I remember looking it up forever ago when I was like, why did this get canceled after a season?
Yeah.
And from my understanding, there was like a huge backlash because it was fairly popular. It wasn't like, the biggest show ever when it came out, but people were watching it. And there was a big letter writing campaign, like the fans paid to have ads in magazines and newspapers to, continue the show. Like there was a big pushback from the people that enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I read something about Fox really not liking the portrayal of some of the characters, and especially like Mal, the captain. We'll get into it, listeners. We'll talk about like who these people are. But I remember that being a complaint from the network. So I wonder if, like Fox just really didn't like it, and no matter what the numbers were, they would have canceled it.
That sounds about right. But
sometimes the people in charge of TV networks, they just really don't know what they're doing. I did see that the show had a resurgence of popularity around 2009. I think it was like remastered and re-released on some channel the year before. And then it was voted the winner of the category shows we'd bring back for the first ever Hulu award. So like clearly people love this show once they discover it. We are going to rate the show at the end out of like 15 Fireflies. But just before we get into the discussion, what are your thoughts on it? Good, bad? Would you recommend it?
I would recommend it. I think it's a good entry point, especially if you're like people that aren't like diehard sci-fi fans, because it is like a sci-fi, but it's not really.
Yes, it is a very like soft sci-fi.
Yeah.
Which I would expect coming from Whedon. I know him better for like fantasy stuff, and I think that this is a sci-fi that feels like a fantasy in some ways.
It's in a Western. I mean, it is like a Western. That just happens to have spaceships.
Exactly. Okay, so then let's get into it. Let's try and summarize the show, do an overview. If you were going to introduce someone to Firefly for the first time and they're like, I'm not watching all that, but you can tell me about it, what would you say to them?
It's a pretty, they fit a lot into one season. I'll give them that. They fit a lot
14
in.
episodes, but lots of stuff.
It's about this ship captain, and his backstory is that he was part of a resistance to this galactic alliance that, basically the government that was, controlling their galaxy, and they lost. And so after the war, he picked up smuggling with a beat up spaceship, and it's him and his crew. And in the first episode, they pick up some interesting passengers. And then over the course of the season, it's really just getting to know the backstories of everybody and, their relationship with this galactic alliance and, run-ins with other smugglers and bank robberies. Because, like I said, it's a Western. It's barely a sci-fi, but in such a cool way, it does it so well.
Yeah, like even with the music and the theme music is very Western. Whenever they are on the ground, it's very Western. The dress, the speech, like it's so interesting to take this culture that is rooted in a very specific context, like a very specific time and place, and then put it in a completely different context up in space. Like very, very cool to see.
Yeah, they have revolvers. It's not lasers, and they're on horseback when they're like on the ground, stage coaches for some reason. But
you needed to circle the wagons. Like, yeah. I was expecting that to be said at one point. It's so interesting. And they do tell us, there's this expositional prologue that you hear after the pilot, and it starts every episode, but there are different characters saying it, like they alternate. And it does give you the background. It's set in 2517, so, five centuries in the future, where Earth has been, quote, used up. And they don't really go into more detail than that, at least not that I saw. Right?
I didn't catch anything more than that.
Okay, but it's used up, and the two of the main characters are Zoe, played by Gina Torres, who I love, and who Whedon also clearly loved, and Mal, played by Nathan Fillion. This is my first Nathan Fillion role.
Yeah, and I know this is probably his most famous role, but he's gone on to do quite a bit other than that. But at least for me, whenever I see anything about him, it's always prefaced with, famous for Firefly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the cast on this is pretty good.
Yeah, a bunch of names I recognized. I think many of them went on to do other things. Summer Glau went on to do like Terminator stuff. Mm-hmm. So a big star cast. I love thinking about how arcs of TV seasons are crafted, because it is a very specific design issue. Like, you're going to make different choices than you would if you were telling the same story in a movie format. And so I was paying attention to the overall arc of the season. And you say the first episode is them meeting these new characters and taking them on the ship. That's a classic getting the crew together pilot. I love that. We have these established relationships. There's Mal, there's Zoe. Zoe's husband, Wash, is the pilot of the ship. They have an engineer for the ship named Kaylee, who's just so sweet.
She's the best.
The best. She's actually just one of my thieves. And then who else is steady on the ship? I think. Oh, and then there's Inara, who is renting out a space on the ship because she is a companion, which we absolutely need to talk about for sure. But so there's those established relationships, and then they bring on new characters in the pilot episode. They bring on Book, who is they call him a shepherd, but it's like the future version of a pastor. They bring on a doctor, Simon, and they bring on, Simon's sister as a stowaway. And we learn more about that storyline over the course of the season. So that's the first episode. It's just introducing everyone. And then there are a bunch of episodes where they establish the characters and send them on fun adventures and introduce side characters that will come in later that they can build conflict off of. Did you have a favorite episode in any of those?
I don't know if I did, but I also think it's interesting, too, because when this came out, the serialization of TV shows wasn't the go-to like it is now. I mean, it was very much common, week to week. It was this character's going to learn how to play trombone this week, and the next week somebody falls off a bike was the standard format. And we were just starting to see that transition to overarching stories be the go-to for TV shows. And I think you can see the transition in this, where there is a season-long story they're building to, but there's also lots of episodes where they're just having fun.
Right. I mean, Buffy was a classic monster of the week.
Yes.
That whole episodic version of TV shows where streaming didn't exist, so it was common for people to miss an episode the one time it was on TV a week. And so it made sense to have more episodic seasons where people could miss things and not be lost. Interesting, astute observation that this is kind of a threshold period.
Yes, because if I remember right, because I've mentioned Star Trek a few times, but Star Trek Enterprise was famous for being one of the first serialized sci-fi TV shows, and I think that came out around the same time of this. And when they decided to make that happen, it was pretty controversial for the reasons you described. It wasn't, not super controversial, but there was some pushback because people, like you said, people missed episodes, and that's just how TV wasn't done up until we started being able to watch TV all in one go.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the way we consume TV is also going to influence the way they make TV and vice versa. Like it's this little chicken and egg smoke fire situation. It's all this weird cycle.
But to go back to your question, I don't know if I have a favorite episode. Just because I binged it so quick, they all kind of ran together. Do you have a favorite episode while I quickly look through the episodes?
I don't remember what it was called, but the episode where they go to that kind of fancy planet. And Inara has the Atherton client, this rich guy who has hired her company for the evening. And Mal and Kaylee go, and Kaylee's so excited to be in this ruffly dress. And then at the end, there's a duel. That I think was my favorite episode, just because you got to see a different side of these characters when they were in this different setting. Like this planet was very different from the others that they visited.
Yeah, and I do like that with Mal, that he puts on this real tough exterior, but in just little moments, he shows that he, loves humanity and the people that he works with and, wants to be a good person. But he just does. He's bad at showing it.
I found him to be a really compelling character. I read that he was one of the characters that Fox really didn't like. They thought he was too dour and too grumpy as a ship captain.
He can be.
Yes, he can.
He's a bit brutal at times.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that fits with the character. I think it fits with the Western in space theme. So I have no complaints about his character, but apparently others did, like decision makers.
You don't see it very often. He's a very complex character, and I think in the first season of a show that's hard to pull off, which they did great, but I can see the executives not liking it. But no, I love him as a captain.
Yeah.
I liked the last episode of the season a lot.
You did?
I did. I mean, I didn't like it being the last episode because it just kind of leaves everything hanging.
Yeah.
But as far as a story, I thought it was interesting because everything's been building up to, this one character having these, crazy abilities, and they kind of, play with that in the episode, that she's become ethereal and part of the ship and is messing with this crazy bounty hunter. And she does have some crazy abilities and, makes this awesome plan. But I love that kind of redemption because at the start of the episode, everyone's talking about kicking her off the ship. And this is, a way that she shows how valuable she can be to the crew. And I just thought it was a fun episode.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk a little bit about River and that storyline as much as we got of it. I'd say this is the B plot, the big B plot of the show. How would you describe River and what happens to her?
So River is the doctor's sister. And in my head, it's kind of, I guess B plot makes sense, but it is kind of the plot of the show, but it's not ever really discussed outwardly, but it's kind of what's driving everything is the River and Doctor. But River is, like we said, the doctor's sister who comes on board. He sneaks her on in the first episode, and she was held by the Alliance for some kind of scientific experiments because she had a good brain and they wanted to expand upon that. We never quite see, at least in the show, I know they get way more into it in the movie, but it seems she's a good fighter. She has some forms of telepathy. She can shoot people without looking at them and just knows where they are. But she's not quite all there because we saw that, they had been drilling into her head and, is trying to regain her normal sense of being in the world and consciousness and, has outbursts and struggles to, know how to react in any kind of social situation. So I guess I shouldn't say struggle. She seems fine. She doesn't care that she's being weird, but she's learning how to be a human again almost.
Yeah, you're right. That does drive a lot of the plot of the whole show. But yeah, going back in time to the episodic series, there wasn't necessarily always a whole plot to the season. So I want to talk about the things that were left unanswered. What do we think they were going to explore if they had more time? Because I don't think they knew before they made the final episode that it was going to be the final episode. So they didn't get to wrap it up.
Yeah, nothing's wrapped up at all.
Yeah, there's no closure whatsoever. It really irks me. My brain that needs things to be tied in a neat loop, very unhappy. What do you think they would have done with more seasons.
I would have loved to have found out more about the Shepherd. I think he's one of the most interesting characters on the show. And this is all of this is to just leaving out Serenity, because I know they wrap up pretty much everything in that, but I don't think it was probably the way they would have done it if the show continued. And I love Serenity, but in hypotheticals where it would have gone if it had more seasons, I think it's interesting because he seems to know a lot about a lot of things that a standard pastor shouldn't. And then sometimes with their interactions with other people, they seem to recognize him as an important person of some sorts. But they never really have a chance to go into who he actually is, because they're pretty sure he's not just a pastor who hopped on board. And there's no reason for him to be sticking around either.
Yeah, the way he came on to the ship was, he had no real reason to be on Serenity specifically. Yeah, his character is a bit of a big enigma, actually. One of my favorites. I think they should have done more with the Reavers. Do they do more with the Reavers in Serenity?
I know they do in the first 20 minutes because that's in the movie, the part of the movie I saw last night, but I don't remember. But yeah, the Reavers are an interesting concept in this world. A very interesting concept. And it felt like the way they set it up as such a visceral thing in like the first or second episode made me feel like they would come back more. It almost like the Borg in Star Trek. Yeah.
Like, it just seems like they were setting this up to be the big bad aside from the Alliance. And I wanted to see what they would do with it. Yeah,
the Reavers are, for people who haven't watched, they're kind of like the people that have gone insane on the edges of space. They're not part of any society at all, and they're apparently all cannibals and psychotic. But there is an episode where they see the aftermath of the Reavers, and it seems like that may have been true.
Yeah, no, really, really scary. Like, this is the boogeyman. This is the boogeyman in an interplanetary society, and it's fascinating to see. The folklorist in me really wanted them to do more with it. So
I kind of liked that they were always just kind of referenced, because to me that made them scarier. If you really want to make them out to be scary, if you show more of them and don't do it right, it really kind of deflates the whole fear of these people.
That's true. And I think on this network they could not have shown it right in the way that actually fit their description. Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
I do like how they get around not being able to curse in this show.
Yes.
They just do it in Mandarin.
They do. It's clever. They just anytime someone is speaking in Mandarin, you know that they're saying bad things.
It's just kind of
would have to be bleeped out.
Assumed that everyone can speak Mandarin as well as English, and when they have to curse, they just switch over to that. And it's such a creative way of getting around the censors. Yeah,
I think it's also interesting because this when this came out, I remember the early 2000s was when people were really talking about, the population of China is so big, like in the future, everyone's going to speak Chinese. Like, I remember people giving that advice. And so I love that it was wrapped up into the world building here. That was actually one of my thieves. Hello. Hi, friends. Corey is outside chasing lightning bugs on the quad. Here on the Podiversity campus, they actually shine in all of the colors of the electromagnetic spectrum. But that gives me some time to share some messages with you. And the first message is a big thank you to all of my patrons who support the show financially every month. As an independent podcaster, it would be so much harder to make this show without your support. So thank you all so much. And I want to give a special thank you and a huge shout out to my sun-like stars, Scott Reynolds, Tom T, Nicole Bartlett, and Ashley Shambo. You are golden and you are beautiful. Thank you for your support. If you would like to hear your name on this show, support an indie podcast, get research notes for almost every episode, and make it onto my Patreon star chart, you can do that for $5 a month at patreon.com/palebluepod. You could also make a one-time donation and become a supernova in the Pale Blue Pod sky. That's at the PayPal link that's in the episode description. And if you can't support Pale Blue Pod financially, that's okay. I understand, and you're still space, and I still love you. The best way to help the show grow is actually to get more people listening to it. So if you take a link to a specific episode that you love and you send it to someone else who you think would love it too, that helps the show grow, that helps your relationship with that other person grow, and that helps that other person develop a relationship with the universe. It's a win-win-win-win if you think about it. So share Pale Blue Pod with your friends and family and loved ones, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you. My next message is a podcast recommendation. It's a show in the Multitude Collective, and it's called Tiny Matters. Tiny Matters is an award-winning science podcast about tiny things, from molecules to microbes, that have a big and often surprising impact on society. You know, science shapes every part of our lives, but so much of its influence is overlooked or buried in the past, from deadly diseases to forensic toxicology to the search for extraterrestrial life, which we all know I love. Tiny Matters is there for you. The hosts are former scientists Sam Jones and Deboki Chakravarty, and together they embrace the awe and messiness of science, and also its place in history and today, and how it could impact our world's future. Tiny Matters is brought to you by the American Chemical Society, a nonprofit scientific organization based in Washington, D.C., and new episodes come out every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Corey's back. Ooh, and it looks like he caught an infrared firefly. I'm going to go make sure that that jar has holes in the lid, and then we're going to get back to talking about Firefly the show. So I think we should just move on to Peeves and Thieves.
Okay.
We're going to do Thieves last because I like to end on an uplifting note. So let's start with Peeves. What bothered you about this show?
I mean, one, it was canceled, and they left all of these untied. They could have at least had, like, the last episode of the season be, you know, like a normal season would have something tied up. But, I mean, that's an obvious one. But as far as the show itself...
You're like, Moiya, I loved this show. Don't make me say anything bad about it.
It's a really good show, and I think that that's all positive stuff. I can't say positive stuff yet.
Fair enough. I can be the bitch.
You can. Maybe some of yours will jog my memory.
Okay. Yeah, I have 4 points that I wrote down. One of them is, so here's a quote from that expositional thing at the beginning. After the Earth was used up, we found a new solar system. And hundreds of new Earths were terraformed and colonized. That's from one version of the exposition. There's another version that says, we terraformed a whole new galaxy of Earths. And even back in 2002, we knew that solar systems and galaxies were not the same thing. I really need them to be clearer on this because they visit so many planets. And they talk about having to travel so far. So surely this is more than just one stellar system. But they never talk about the stars that they visit. Like, they never say that anything about the star has changed. And according to the internet, they don't have faster than light travel. So they wouldn't be able to travel between star systems anyway, which means this must all just be one stellar system. How?
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking like science-wise, but I should have, because this is a science podcast. I was thinking like things that bugged me about the characters or story.
Oh, I also have that. Don't you worry. I also have that.
But yeah, that's a good point. And I remember at one point there's like a picture of like the Alliance, and it's just like, you know, like you would have all the planets by the star, but there's like 100 rings out of the sun, and so I guess they're all just circling the same sun, maybe. And I thought that was hilarious. Like, that doesn't even make sense. Everything that doesn't make any sense at all. And yeah, they never describe how they're getting to these places, because even in our own galaxy, it would take forever to get to most of the planets.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so I did some digging, and the Firefly can accelerate fast enough that you can, you know, conceivably get to different planets within one system fairly quickly, you know, within a few days. Fine. But you absolutely could not travel to other stars without faster than light technology. Wild. So that was one. It was one of my peeves. I'm going to let them go because I didn't see anything in the credits about a science advisor or whatever. And I was not around. What was I doing? I could tie my shoes, but not well in 2002. So it's fine.
I was 9. I don't know what I was doing when I was 9. Not watching this. Probably not. This. I could see my parents were nerds too. They may have been watching this. I don't know.
My mom definitely would have. If we'd had TV, she would have been watching this. So that's my first peeve. My second peeve is like very, very closely related. How did they do the terraforming of these hundreds of planets in whatever stellar systems they're in? Because I can imagine them terraforming the atmosphere and putting, the right gases for humans to breathe in the atmosphere. I can imagine that. Plants, maybe, if you doctor the atmosphere enough, but you're still dealing with whatever dirt is on the world itself. But all of the planets that they visit not only have the same breathable air and relative climate and trees, they also have the same gravity. You can't change a planet's gravity unless they also have the technology to like really either manipulate gravity directly or affect the planet's size.
Yeah, the technology doesn't make much sense because it really doesn't seem that even like the Alliance has crazy technology. Like everything is stuff we would maybe have today. Like all of their suits and everything, the way they, their ship doesn't seem that insane, which I know goes into like the gritty vibe they were going for. But like I said, they're just using regular guns, but they do have some kind of energy weapon, but apparently nobody likes them.
Right. Right. Like someone mentioned laser pistols, and I was like, why haven't you been using those?
Yeah, they have to steal one in an episode, the first laser pistol.
Yeah. That's so
I do
real.
like how they do the Dune thing, though, where there's just no aliens and they just don't ever talk about aliens, because that would just make the storytelling much more complicated. And I do appreciate that sometimes in sci-fi, because as soon as you introduce aliens, you just have to explain them.
Yes.
And that just convolutes things unless you're ready to do that.
Although I will say it is part of my official headcanon that the Alliance just like squashed all of the native life on every planet that they visited.
It'd be believable.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to if you're doing terraforming.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely a whole bunch of commentary on like colonialism in cool ways, and the way that they like propagandize that, that you see in other episodes. But yeah, the technology doesn't make any sense at all.
No, I'm with you there. Even like the medical stuff. Like the medical stuff should be a little bit more advanced.
They're using like the same medicines we have. Exactly.
And like the same syringes. Like I just don't like that all seems kind of far-fetched to me that we could advance technology enough to have space city ships. Like a lot of people live on those big Alliance ships and we can travel to other planets. We should have like found new cool stuff on those other planets. But no. Keep it a Western.
Yeah.
My other big complaint, I have two more, is that they took too long to do something with River. Like, I understand they didn't know they only had one season, but like Joss has done this in other shows where he introduces and makes very clear, like, this is a special, interesting character and you're going to want to know what happens with her. Like, he did it in Dollhouse. Like, right away, Buffy, like, you are so invested in not only the character, but what happens to her. And we didn't get that with River, who was like by far the most interesting, attention-grabbing character in the show. They could have done something with her in episode like 2 or 3 without spending the entire season making it slowly seem like she's getting worse and then letting her be a hero at the end.
Yeah, they barely do anything with her. I mean, and I guess we're talking about characters. I don't like the Doctor. I mean, he's not a bad dude, but it's just, he bugged me. I found him annoying. Like, I know his whole thing is he's supposed to be this high-class person who's now living with, these outlaws, but he kind of does it too much. It's a bit too far. It's like, okay, sir. And then they like introduce like a romance between him and the engineer, and it just didn't feel like it was working. It felt forced and odd from both sides.
I agree. Yeah, he's definitely not in my top of the characters in my ranking. He was just kind of there. He was necessary there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean, wherever you are.
The guy who's in charge of defense, Jane Cobb. At first, I felt the same way in the first like 2 or 3 episodes, but by the end of the season, I loved any scene he was in because they like really figured out how to make his character work and be just hilarious.
Absolutely. My final peeve, and I guess going back on the serial versus episodic nature of TV, maybe this makes sense, but I didn't like that the individual characters didn't have clearly defined desires identified to like even set up an arc. Like it was clear that Simon and River want to be together. But like, what do the others want? And what could a satisfying ending look like for these people? Because if we don't know that, then how are we ever going to get closure? Which we never got anyway. But it feels like we didn't even get the start of closure.
That's a good point, because I was even thinking in that last episode, you know, when they like just barely survive by the skin of their teeth, River comes and saves the day. But after the episode, I was like, what would their, you know, retirement look like? Like, what is the end goal? And I know they're just surviving because they're all basically wanted at this point. Yeah. But that a form of that thought had crossed my mind, and I think it's a good point because, I mean, I guess with Mal, you know, he's trying to still be respectable in a world of thieves, at least somewhat, and, you know, and just do everything he can to stick it to the Alliance. But everyone else is just kind of enjoying the ride.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, even in Westerns, like, Westerns have characters with motivations and who get, like, satisfying endings. You know, like, a black hat character in a Western can still get the girl and ride off into the sunset or whatever the fuck. Like, they just didn't have any of that here.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And now I know there are some very definite endings in Serenity for some of these characters, but as far as if you were building a long form piece of media, I don't know where any of it was going.
Classic first season, you know, stumbling blocks, I think.
Oh, yeah. And we talk about this on our podcast all the time, that the first season of so many shows that we now love are just, it's not common for a first season of any show to be good. So the fact that this was great, you know, I think is why people remember it so fondly. I mean, even going to, like, we use this as the example all the time, but the first season of Seinfeld is terrible. It's not funny at all. Like, it's really bad. And so I think that's another reason why this show is so well remembered, because they did make a killer first season of a show. But I don't know what it would have looked like after the first season.
Right. Which is, you know, it works to and against its favor. Right. But it is a great season. So let's talk about what makes it great. What are some of the things, the thieves of your heart?
I think there's not much else like it, you know, even in like the 20 odd years since this came out. Like, I mean, like, I know that Western elements have been really popular in like sci-fi media in the last like 5 or 6 years, especially in video games. But we've not seen like a Western sci-fi that leaned so hard into the Westernness of it. And, you know, I think that's a cool take because it is living on the fringes, you know. I think there's a lot of parallels that's like fertile ground for an awesome TV show. And the vibe is different. It is cool seeing like the tropes everyone knows from television thrown into this, you know, sci-fi world where you wouldn't usually see it. So to me, that's the biggest one, is just that it is just very unique. Yeah, the mix of Western and like some Chinese cultures into this is very cool. Fascinating. If I was still hosting a world building podcast, this would have to be like a 2-hour episode. There's a lot of cool world building in here, for sure. The characters are great too. Like we've said, like I loved most of the characters, and it does seem like, you know, at least other than maybe Jane, like I said, who at the beginning I did not like, and by the end loved it, and then the Doctor I wasn't a fan of. Everyone else, like, it seemed like the actors knew what they were doing, like who these people were supposed to be, and just really knocked it out of the park. Really, really dug deep. My first thief is just Kaylee. That's it. Just the character was so... She's great. She's great, and she served like a unique purpose among the crew, right? Like he's the engineer. She's the person who's taking care of the ship. But in terms of the story, like she's the only character who had that type of energy. She felt like a palate cleanser every time she came on the screen, because it is a Western. It's dark and gritty in some points, and then Kaylee comes in as this like pure form of sunlight, right? Like I don't watch that many Westerns. But she's bubbly. She's like, I don't know, maybe the shopkeeper that the main character like goes to have a breath of fresh air. Like she was so nice, and this idea that she has no formal training in taking care of mechanical things, but she just has this intuitive understanding of it, I thought was a really interesting character trait. Yeah, she just thinks they're neat. She just thinks they're neat. It's like, she just gets them. Yeah, I think she was one of my top favorite characters. And because she is kind of like the innocent, happy character on the ship, they play with that where like if something bad happens to her, it really impacts, you know, you feel it like more than anyone else. when she gets in danger or is attacked. Like the rest of the crew are like, they don't take that, and you feel it as the watcher too.
She's like almost childlike, but somehow manages to not be childlike. I really respect the actress for how she played this.
We haven't talked about at all the character of Inara, which is an interesting character.
That's my next thief. Yes, Inara and the whole companion system, I think, is so cool in the way they set it up. My favorite episode, the one where there's that duel at the end, she ends up saying to this Atherton guy who is threatening her career and saying, "Oh, you mistreated me, so no one's ever going to hire you again." And she's like, "Nuh-uh. That is not how this works." She says, "You have a black mark in the registry and no companion will contract with you ever again." And that's so tough. I love that. And I really love that that's how this system of, taking from the Western context, this idea of like a madam, this idea of a brothel house maybe, and like adapting it, I really loved.
But it's not even just like that. I mean, they've taken it to like where sex work is seen as very respectable, and that's the whole reason why Captain Mao wants her on the ship, is because that lets them get into more places because they have a respectable lady on the ship, which is a very fun twist, but also a breath of fresh air because you don't see it treated like that, in almost any pieces of media.
Right. Yes. I loved it. And that's what most of my notes were about while I was watching. And also a lot of, oh, wow, Inara looks good.
And then they try playing that her and the captain are in love, and I can kind of see it. It doesn't feel as forced as the Doctor, but it still felt kind of odd. I always liked that they just had a very mutual respect. Like they both, it got strained at times, but they both saw each other as equals in a way on the ship. Yeah,
I would have loved to see more exploration of that relationship too, because I can see it going either way, which is the hallmark of a well-written dynamic.
Because she's not part of the crew. She's renting a little tiny ship that's attached to the side of Serenity and doesn't take orders from the captain because, she pays her stay there, and she flies her little ship herself and makes her own plans when they're visiting places. She has full agency as opposed to their wild escapades.
We love an independent woman here on the pod. And then my final thief is back to science, and it's about adapting timekeeping. There is at least one scene where they get to a planet and they like adjust their clocks or something to the local time to decide when they're going to meet up later, and that's good. Each of these planets should also have different day lengths, unless with their terraforming, they're like changing the rotation rates of the planets. So they should all have like more or fewer than 24 hours. But I appreciate the attempt at a nod at the fact that space knows no time preference.
So this tiniest little nod to some form of space travel in this show.
It's a wink at it. But not even like one of those winks where you're like, do they just have something in their eye?
Because even at times they like to talk about how long it takes to get from one spot to another, one planet to another. And so they at least try to that it would take, like space travel will take a long time. But then other times it seems like they get from one place to another in like an hour.
Yeah. Look, this is the glory of a soft science fiction. You can nod at scientific concepts just to make the audience realize like, oh, we are in space. This is a different setting than I'm used to. But you don't have to get too involved with it. It's okay.
It's like the suspension of disbelief you're supposed to have while watching media.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when the TV or movie or whatever signposts itself well enough, you can tell how seriously you're supposed to take it, which is good. Like no one would ever take Futurama seriously as something that's like, oh, this is how we're saying space actually is, because they set themselves up as fools from the beginning.
Yeah.
Any other thieves of your heart?
It's a good show. And not all shows that, especially from this time period, that were canceled quickly were. Almost none of them were, but this still holds up. I was surprised. It'd probably been 6-7 years since I watched Firefly, and I was watching it over the last couple of weeks. Like, man, this is a solid show.
Nodding to past Corey, like, good taste, past Corey.
There weren't many good tastes in past Corey, but that was a good one.
Okay, well, are you ready to quantify how good your taste is? Because we have this rubric to get through.
Oh.
Yes, there are 5 categories. It's all very, very official. Very, very on the up and up. The first category is the story arc. What do we think the story crafting was like on a scale from anywhere from 0 to 3? Then we have like the scenery of it. How did it look? What's the production value? Then we have steaminess. You know, how appropriate was the level of romance in the art? Then we have scientific accuracy, and then we have soothing factor. How does this art make you feel about your place in the universe?
Okay.
Okay. So starting with story arc.
I was waiting to hear if you had characters as a separate one, because I think, from a character building standpoint, this is like a 3, but the overarching story we've talked about, it might be a 1.
You know what? I've never done a TV show before. Why not add a 6th category?
Yeah.
Why not? Okay. So characters we would give a 3.
Yes, I would. But the story
we're giving a 1.
A strong 1, like a 1.5.
A strong 1. I think a 1 is strong. We could do so it's a 4 combined for characters and story. Because I would dock it a lot of points because I think that they just mismanaged their character resources by waiting too long to do something with River.
Yeah, super cool characters. Super cool characters that had great potential, and then just nothing.
And Book. Book is such a compelling character, but we didn't get much with him. So I think 1 for story. What about scenery? What do you think of the production value here?
Out of 3, I would give a 2 because it is very cool. The ship is cool, the planets are cool, but it's very much a lot of the same. If you're going to other planets a lot, you maybe mix it up more. It's all very just traditional Western. You're out in the desert, and that's like it.
I like that. Yeah.
What they did have was very cool. I don't think it was unique enough between episode to episode.
That's a really good point because, like, Stargate does this. It's going to all these different planets, and the planets all look the same, because they're all filming in Vancouver. But when they approach the planets, you can see that visibly from the outside, the planets look different most of the time. And in Stargate, they're not even usually approaching from space. So they could have done that here, where they show the full planet at once and how different that is. And that would have really visually signposted to the audience, oh, we are in a different location. But they don't do that much.
Yeah, I think there was one episode where they're on a world, and it was the most varied looking one, and it was because it was nighttime instead of daytime.
Yeah, what they showed us looked good, but they didn't show us enough and enough variety. Okay. What about steaminess? Corey, I have thoughts here. What are your thoughts on the steaminess of the show? How appropriate the level of steaminess was?
Appropriate?
Yeah, did it seem forced or was there not enough?
Again, I think it's a good right in the middle, like a 2, because I think there was a lot of great potential for steaminess, and they didn't go too hard with it. But the relationships that they did try to show felt forced. Other than not the captain, but Zoe and Walsh. Though they're amazing as a couple. To
me, that's the only romance that is saving this category. I think that the will they, won't they with Mal and Inara got on my nerves by the end of it, but I'm sure they were planning on exploring it more in the future. With Simon and Kaylee, I agree with you. It didn't feel supernatural. And part of that, I think, is because I don't like the relationship between Simon and River. It felt like the first few episodes I watched of them, it felt like Simon was in love with River.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
It's a little weird, and he's a little too overprotective and touchy with his sister.
Yes. I have siblings. I understand sibling love. I understand sacrificing a lot to make sure that my siblings are okay, in this fictional scenario. But I think their interactions are a bit too familiar for my comfort.
I agree.
So I would give it a 1.5.
Yeah.
You get a 1.5 for, light, a flavor, a hint of incest. That's what it's doing. That's what it's giving. Okay, on to scientific accuracy. What are we thinking there?
A 1. It wasn't very scientifically accurate, but I do love any sci-fi that's, not all clean and bright, where, because it would be on like if you're on the fringes of space exploration, like it's going to be things are going to be fixed on the fly with duct tape, like, and I think that is cool when shows do lean into that, because you are out there on your own in unexplored territory. And so I think it's cool from an, idea with that, but as far as the actual science, it's just not great.
I mean, I'm falling back on it being a softer sci-fi, so I'm assessing it from that perspective. And conceptually, I really like a lot of what they did. They have the time difference thing. They have that episode where the ship's engine breaks down, so they're running out of life support.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. And then there's that one scene in the episode where River is like, no, you're not going to die gasping. You're not going to die of suffocation. We're all going to die, freeze to death much sooner. Love her for that.
Because it sounds like she's being comforting. She's like, no, you're not going to die of starvation. It'll be fine. You're going to die of freezing to death.
Yeah. But I appreciate that. I don't know exactly what their environment controls are, but I could see that being the case. It does take you hours to freeze to death out in space.
Yes.
And so another thing I appreciated at the very, very end, where that bounty hunter is knocked out into space, I love that he doesn't freeze first.
Yeah, because that always bugs me in sci-fi, because what is it? Space isn't actually cold. It just doesn't have heat.
Exactly.
So you would survive quite a while if you had air.
So to me, the thing that docks at points is that terraforming business and the travel stuff. So yeah, I think a 1 to 1.5 is fair.
Another strong one.
Another strong one. Okay. Now for the soothing factor. Do you think watching this show makes people feel better or worse, or like more or less comfortable with the universe?
I think more. I think in a lot of ways it is very soothing, because it just shows people living normal lives. It's not, grand adventure or, Starfleet with, it's these people just surviving like we do today with space and a lot of the same problems. So I think it makes space travel a lot more relatable.
And none of the bad things that happen to them are because of space.
It's people.
Yeah, it's all people. They have to leave the Earth because of people, not because like the sun is doing something weird or there's an asteroid impact. The ship never breaks down because of a weird gamma ray burst or something. Like it's always human folly.
Yes.
That gets them. So I also find that very comforting. I would give it a 3.
I think so. And and it's a soothing show. It's a good white noise show, so it's soothing in that aspect too.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it does give a lot of hope, and to me at least, with space travel and soothingness.
Excellent. Okay. We have given this 11.5. Technically out of 18, but I'm going to say still out of 15 Fireflies, because it's a good show and I think it deserves a higher score.
That sounds about right, because if I had to give it out of 10 just overall, I was going to say like 8.5 out of 10 for a show. So that math's right.
The math is mathin'. And here we are, 11.5 out of 15 Fireflies for Firefly. Do you say Firefly or Lightning Bug?
I catch myself saying both. It just, I've been asked that before. I think usually Lightning Bug, but I also say Firefly. I don't know.
Yeah, I also do both. I'm from like very western Pennsylvania, and I think that region, Ohio, western Pennsylvania, is in like this dialectic mishmash. It's like the middle of the Venn diagram for a lot of dialects. So. A
lot, yes. I think we talk funny here.
We certainly do. Okay, well, that was so fun.
Agreed.
I really enjoyed talking about the show with you. Thank you for suggesting it. Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to brag about yourself and share where people can find your work online.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Like I said at the beginning, I host a podcast called Bathtub Season, where we record, me and a buddy, not in the same bathtub, but we both take baths in our own respective bathtubs and record from them while talking about TV shows that only lasted one season. We do it episode by episode. We just finished our second season, which was the short-lived animated Napoleon Dynamite TV show, which was a wild, weird thing. And you can find us at bathtubseason.com. We have a link tree with all of our socials. We're on every social possible. And yeah, that's where you can find us and what I do.
Do you want to share your personal socials?
Sure. You can find me on most socials as well as The Final Corey.
The Final Corey. No Corey after you.
It was a dumb joke from the McElroy brothers years and years and years ago that I don't think anyone gets anymore. They named one of their characters The Final Pam, and I thought that was so funny. So I just made myself The Final Corey.
Got it. I take great pride in not knowing other Moyas. Like, one person asked if they could name a kid after me once, and I was like, please don't.
Well, I've looked it up because my full name is Corey Rindler, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only Corey Rindler on the planet. I've done a lot of digging. There was another one, was actually born the same year as me, but she got married.
Ooh, haha.
So now I'm the only Corey Rindler.
That's so exciting.
It is exciting. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that's a great note to end on. Listeners, no matter how many people have your name, you are space. Bye.
Bye.
Pale Blue Pod is hosted by me, Dr. Moiya McTier, a.k.a. the universe's bestie. I created the show with original co-host Corinne Caputo, a comedienne extraordinaire, and help from the Multitude Productions team. Our theme music is by Evan Johnston, and our cover art is by Shay McMullen, and our audio editing is handled by the incomparable Misha Stanton. I am Go Astro Mo everywhere online, and you can stay in touch with the show and the universe by following Pale Blue Pod on Instagram or checking out our website, palebluepod.com. We are a member of Multitude, an independent podcast collective and production studio. So if you like Pale Blue Pod, you will love the other shows that live at multitude.productions. And if you want a shout out on the show and research notes for every episode, you can join our community over at patreon.com/palebluepod for just about $1 per episode. Thank you so much for listening to Pale Blue Pod. I'll be back next week. Bye.